Warm greetings from the High 10. Thank you all so much for joining me. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Last week, I forgot to put up my movie suggestions for the weekend, so here are the two suggestions for this week, and I still will bring you weekly and weekend movies. Luther, The Fallen Sun, released 3 months ago, Netflix, and The Ritual Killer starring Morgan Freeman. And I believe you can find that on Prime if I'm not mistaken, but you can check the video out. The Ritual Killer, Morgan Freeman, and Luther, The Fallen Sun. I've been a big fan of Mr. Idris Elba since I first saw him in The Wire. It was a TV series, a premium series. I believe it was the Showtime or HBO aired it, and I was hooked ever since. And I'm a very big fan of his. Please check out the Luther franchise. It is a British crime drama, and I am a big fan. Thank you all so much for joining me. You are now listening to The Vault XL. Let's listen to the polls on my channel, what you all have to say pertaining to Mr. Bryan Kohberger. And then I will get into the commentary. Why do you think BK remains silent? Weigh future evidence, 0. Advice from counsel, 33%. His choice, 17%. To give a plea, avoid death penalty, 25%. Playing games, 25%. Do you think BK's sister asked him if he committed the crime, told family of her suspicions, news agent others, and believes he is guilty? Asked him, 0%. Told family of suspicions to sister, 100%. News agent, 0%. Others, 0%. Thinks he's guilty, 0%. Well, let me say this. The information had to have gotten out some type of way. So she had to have told somebody, and you all put 0 for news agent and others. Well, then how did News Nation get wind that she suspected her brother? She told somebody. But those were your opinions. The next question is, does a surviving roommate have evidence to exonerate Bryan Kohberger, or defense is bluffing? If true, which one is it? So as far as exoneration, you all said 0 for yes. No, defense bluffing, 86%. Dylan, 0. Bethany, 14. So 14% of you believe perhaps Bethany has information to exonerate Bryan Kohberger, 7 votes. Please tell me why. Put your comments below those who took the vote. We will now get into the commentary pertaining to Bryan Kohberger and why he remains silent in court. News Nation is the source.
Do you understand the charge in count 2, murder in the first degree? Yes. Do you understand the maximum penalty? Yes. Do you understand the charge in count 3, murder in the first degree? Yes. Do you understand the maximum penalty? Yes.
Bryan Kohberger, keeping it short, but answering the questions that he had to in court today. He was arraigned. That means presented with the charges against him, specifically involving the stabbing deaths, gruesome, of 4 University of Idaho college students. Usually you put in a plea of guilty or not guilty. There's another option specific to the state of Idaho, which is basically an embrace of your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. And it is what they call in that state standing silent. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It means what it says. You don't enter a plea. The judge then, under state law, must enter a plea on behalf of the defendant, and that plea must be not guilty. Obviously, it would be crazy for the judge to plead guilty for somebody. And that's what the judge did, pleaded not guilty on all 5 counts, 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of burglary. So why do you do this? What does this mean? But here's what I'm really interested in, okay? This bigger consideration of where investigators believe Kohberger may lead them, well beyond these 4 horrible murders. All right, joining me now is the one and only retired FBI agent, News Nation Law and Justice contributor, Jennifer Coffindaffer. Coffindaffer, you're cheating on me on a Dateline special on Friday night about Kohberger. And we learned some new things, that Kohberger had purchased a knife and sheath on Amazon, that one of his sisters feared he was involved in the murders, that family members even searched his car, allegedly. But probably the most damning news from that report was that Kohberger allegedly broke into the home of a former colleague as part of an elaborate ploy to stalk or manipulate She asked him, when she was worried about the break-in, to install a video surveillance system. Authorities believe he used the system that he put in to help her to stalk her. Now, this was big news for Dateline. Here's the problem, Coffin Dapper. They didn't break this. Here's us a month ago.
Because your lives are forever in
Sorry
time.
about that commercial break. I thought that was a part of the news broadcast. Good grief. Who is doing all this talking? This is what I'd like to know. I'm very curious.
Here's us a month ago. Tonight, we start with a big News Nation exclusive. This time, it's about the Bryan Kohberger case in Idaho. We can now report some very frightening, potentially incriminating information involving Kohberger's behavior at school and a situation that authorities are looking at as another potential target for the accused murderer. A female WSU associate of Kohberger's confided in him that someone had broken into her apartment and asked Kohberger for advice on installing. Enough of me. I just said that. But it's so funny, Coffin Dapper. You'll see. In this business, if they can get away with it, they try to. They'll take something that you say and they'll make it exclusive again. But it's also easy to do it to News Nation because we're just getting going. But you got to fight for your rights. And we had it first. So let's unpack this, Coffin Dapper.
Bryan,
Why make the non-plea that he entered today? What does it mean from a strategic standpoint?
Well, from a strategic standpoint, I think Bryan Kohberger made a statement by not making a statement. I mean, for me, it was total defiance. That's how I read it. That's how I saw it. I can only imagine what was going through his head when he saw the judge actually saying, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, and so on. So for me, that's how I saw it. Possibly he could be thinking about a plea. And so he didn't want to enter a plea of not guilty. But no matter, Chris, where we're at is not guilty pleas on all counts.
To go through the process. Now, a lot of people have been confusing this with a couple of other terms that get thrown around here. Nolo contendere, okay? That is a plea available in a lot of places. Latin, it means I don't contest it. Now, here's the difference, okay? What he pled is basically availing himself of his Fifth Amendment right against incrimination, self-incrimination. So that's what this really is. It does not do what nolo contendere does, which is you're not contesting, but you are going to face punishment now. So it defaults into a guilty plea for the purpose of the process of punishment. Or neither is it an Alford plea. An Alford plea is from a case named Alford, where it established the concept, which Coffin Dapper is very familiar with on the federal side, of you enter a guilty plea for the sake of a plea bargain. And if it goes wrong, there's a little bit of a leeway there, but the Alford plea can count against you as a guilty plea going forward also. So this is different than those two things. And to your point, does that mean in your mind, Coffin Dapper, that he thinks that he could get a deal? What do you think that deal would be? No death penalty?
That's the only one, would be no death penalty. And I don't even know if they're going to get that. We'll see how it shakes out. They've got 60 days to put that into the court and get that on the table. Certainly could be used as a bargaining chip.
Put your head in the prosecutor investigator side. Would you make this guy a deal?
No, I would not. I think the evidence is strong. I think the evidence is strong. And I think, for me, my heart and what I did as an investigator, it's about the victims. And it's about those 4 kids that were killed. And I think they deserve justice. So, no, I wouldn't make a deal.
And he could have pleaded not guilty and still gotten a deal. He probably could have pleaded guilty and still gotten a deal.
Yes.
But it's interesting. Do you know if Lori Vallow pleaded standing silent also, or no? Did she enter a plea? Do you remember?
Well, as I recall, she also stood silent. And I want to mention somebody else who did, BTK. And I also wondered if this is a mimic of BTK. Remember, he studied under the professor that studied BTK. And I think that was so interesting.
And if I hadn't asked that question, Coffin-Daffer, what, are you just going to keep it for Dateline? You weren't going to give me that nugget? If I didn't ask that question, I was going to see that somewhere else? No, I'm just kidding. Jennifer, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I look forward to doing this trial with you. Thank you very much. All right, now I want to bring in the big shot, Ashley Banfield here, because I want to expand our aperture here, okay? Nobody's been on this case more than Ashley has, and we understand that they have a pretty good book, the investigators on this. My question, Ashley, is how curious are you about where investigators may be wanting to take this beyond the instant circumstances of these 4 college kids? What are you hearing about their areas of curiosity beyond these 4 victims?
Well, I think they're working in concert with Pennsylvania to start with. Pennsylvania has been sniffing around old cases. They haven't come up with anything now, but they've been sniffing around old cases, and they're probably doing a pretty deep dive into all kinds of old digital footprints of Bryan Kohberger, just to see if he's had any behavior. But as you know, because you're the lawyer, you can't just bring everything in, right? It has to be a very specific pattern of behavior to be able to bring things into the trial. So unless he's got very, very similar circumstances to this particular case, it's not as though all your bad acts, they may not even be bad acts by law, they might just be bad behavior.
Yeah.
It's not like all that can come in. What I
the
find,
404B.
Well, I was going to say,
The
as a lawyer,
404B
I think
stuff
the
that you're
most
talking about.
interesting thing. Correct.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Correct. Yeah, the bad act stuff. But I think as a lawyer, you hit the nail on the head about looking at strategy here, because nobody I've spoken to who specializes in Idaho law can see the strategy of not entering a plea out loud, other than potentially he wants to just use that speedy trial aspect as strategy, because we reported the other night, the whole network, Chris, there's 51 terabytes of information that everyone has to go through. And I think his strategy is, I don't believe these prosecutors can organize and get cogent enough on a case against me that I can't poke holes on in, 5 months.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to News Nation Now.
News Nation Now is the source. Mr. Cuomo, who has joined in with Miss Banfield, now a commentator for News Nation. I have a video uploading that's having difficulty pertaining to the sister's commentary and a suspicion. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it in this live stream in case it doesn't make it. I'm going to touch on everything they've said in this live stream because it's just easier to just do various topics and subject matters in one video instead of making separate videos. Thank you for your time. Let's touch on everything that Mr. Cuomo and Miss Banfield said, and Miss Coffin-Daffer. Thank you, Miss Coffin-Daffer, ex-FBI agent. So much to touch on. Sources. Who are the sources that have been going to the news and News Nation with said information the past couple of months pertaining to things about BK? Sister suspicion. Did she talk to a news agent? We'll touch on that. Did she talk to a news agent, tell somebody, family members, outsiders? Did the sister, one of the sisters, go to a news agent with the said information that she suspected her brother of committing these crimes once the bolo went out on the white Elantra? Are the family members still supporting Mr. Kohberger? Let's go there. Are they still supporting him, putting money on his books, commissary? Who's writing him, calling him? Do they talk to him, video chat on the iPad that inmates get? For those who are not jail savvy, they have iPads in jail now. They can video chat with said people. They have to put money on cards to video chat. Who's writing, calling him, putting money on the books? He remained silent in this court hearing yesterday. Why? Strategic move, what? Gonna take a plea? If you're gonna take a plea, why not just go ahead and plead guilty? First, he was not guilty months back before the new year. Your parents were supporting you, feeling like you could be, want to be fair, blah, blah, blah. Let's see all the evidence. Evidence has come out. More and more people are talking and bringing up information, although there's a gag order. We got all this chitter chatter. What's the truth to the information that has been relayed to News Nation? What is the truth? They searched his car. What are you doing searching his car, family members? That means you thought possibly he's done something. He's walking around the house with gloves. That would have been suspicious to the parents. Okay. Why are you walking around with gloves? Did they ask him, why are you walking around with gloves? Did he make an excuse? Well, I'm OCD. I'm scared of germs. Well, you should stay your ass back in Washington. Did the parents have suspicions of hearing about the bolo of the white Elantra? I'm sure they kept up with news pertaining to Washington, Idaho. Their son goes to school there. He's 15 minutes away from the crime. Did they ever think to themselves in hearing the information on the news that perhaps their son is a suspect? He drove a car, which is a white Elantra. Did the parents think this when they got information of the bolo? Sisters, family members, neighbors. What do the neighbors think now that information got out that he was snooping through their garbage cans, dropping trash in their garbage cans? Now he's wearing gloves in the house. So who said something about the gloves? Because if the sisters don't live at the house, then that means the parents had to have said something. He's walking around with gloves. What's going on? So did they even have a family meetup? Something's going on with Bryan. What's the 411? You know, there's a bolo about the car. He's acting suspicious, blah, blah, blah. You're also going to hear commentary of his winded conversations in those traffic stops. He seemed to be very talkative, but yet when he goes to this arraignment or whatever, a hearing yesterday, he has nothing to say. Waived his right to a speedy trial, and that's possibly to help his defense so his attorneys can gather information, get all the information they can to defend him properly. I'm going to touch on everything in this live stream, okay? BTK stood silent in his hearings, arraignment. Is he mimicking BTK? As most of you know, Kohberger studied under a female professor who talked to BTK and interviewed him. Is he mimicking BTK? I also hear that it's rare to put in a silent vote, rather, to remain silent in court. So as I said on my community page, in my live streams, I do believe this is a game to Mr. Kohberger. He knows he killed these people. I do believe he killed these people because an innocent person would just say, I'm innocent. I'm going to follow this all the way out. I'm going to go all the way to the extent of the law. I'm going to go to trial. Pray that 12 members of the jury will find me not guilty. What fool is going to get indicted a week before and then say nothing the next week at a hearing? I'll wait. Let his family tell it. We're going to presume innocence. Well, it's months later, and he's now remaining silent after indictment. You do the math. He's a narcissist. He has a God complex. He's a psychopath. And I do believe all this is for show, to see the evidence, to see where he messed up, to see the gory details, see the pictures, see the people cry, moan, holler, scream, see the pictures of the victims up on the screen so he can relive his moment of stalking these victims, killing these victims, the hunt, the wearing the gloves, the trying to stay out of the police's way. But the thing that Kohberger didn't understand, and allegedly he's college educated, but he's a fool, you can't erase your DNA, sir. At some point, you've touched something in your car, at that apartment, in your parents' house. You want me to believe that you were bathing with gloves on? You washed your hands after urinating with gloves on? You ate with gloves on? Let's keep it real. You can't erase your DNA, sir. So this crime that you exacted in Idaho was a waste of time. And if you studied psychology, you should have known that. And really, it's common sense. You don't really need to have a degree in psychology to know you can't erase your DNA. You've left your DNA somewhere. No matter if you wipe everything down, wear gloves all damn day, you still have to touch something at some point without the damn gloves. You want me to believe that you were at the schoolhouse walking around with gloves on as a teacher's assistant with gloves on? Stay woke, everybody. Stay woke. What's this dry run with this coworker? Was this coworker a grand jury witness fearing for her safety because she's seeing all the nasty things said about the other females in the house, the survivors, the he said, the she said, the gossip. She wants to remain silent. Is the coworker a grand jury witness or was a grand jury witness? Will this same person testify against Kohberger that she asked for his help because she believes somebody broke into her house and she feels like he is the one who broke into her house, moved things around in her house? Does she have proof? Is there a police report? I hear there is not. So why didn't you call the police? When did you decide that Kohberger was the suspect? After he was arrested? Did you have suspicions that he could possibly be the one that broke into your house beforehand? Did you say anything to him out of the way? Say something to other people? When did you, ma'am, decide that Kohberger was the one that broke into your house? I believe it's when he got arrested. And I'm going to also say, why didn't you file a report? Because you should know that this defense attorney is going to chop that up and wear you down with that. Well, why do you think it's our client? You're so concerned about your safety. Why didn't you file a report before telling Kohberger you felt like somebody was in your house? Did he get a camera to put in her house after she asked for his help? Did he go then buy a camera, met up with her and put a camera in her house and watched her? Will there be evidence in court to show he was also watching this lady? Will there be some data on his phone? Because you know you can connect cameras and devices to your phone, to your devices for surveillance, such as ADT, so on and so forth. You can see who's at your door, with the doorbell camera, blah, blah, blah. Will they have evidence to show that he had security surveillance inside of this coworker's apartment and or home? And what is her proximity to Mr. Kohberger at that time? Same development, same apartment complex, cross the street, cross town. What would be even more baffling if we find out she didn't even live on the property where he lived? Stay woke. How did they come in contact to have this conversation? Where he lived, at the university, where does she live? What is the proximity of her home to his home? Because that's going to be very relevant as well. And once again, who are the sources bringing out all this information pertaining to Kohberger when there's a gag order? And was this a dry run to see if he could get in someone's apartment and peep around? Because if he has never done this before, never peeped through a window, broke into someone's house, apartment, was this coworker a dry run before the incident in Idaho? Because there's always a dry run somewhere. So what is the first place he went in, broke in before killing the students? This lady, another house, or King Road? Thank you for joining me. And as I also said in this commentary, it's rare that a person gives this remaining silent plea, considering they were moaning and crying back in the winter. He was not guilty. I do believe Kohberger is a narcissist. He has a God complex. He thinks his you-know-what doesn't stink. He's getting enjoyment from the attention. This is the attention he never got in life as a person with low self-esteem, chubby kid. This is the attention he's always wanted. Naturally, he would prefer to have his freedom, but he was stupid in his exacting of this crime, and he didn't follow protocol to be more careful. But he needs the attention. He needs to see where he messed up. He needs to see the photographs, the testimony from people. He has to relive the crime, and we've learned this from perpetrators. They like to relive it. Go back and visit the crime. Go back and tamper with evidence with the dead bodies. Also, assault the dead bodies. Yes, some have done that, and you know what I mean. This is Kohberger. He has to see where he messed up. He needs to see how he was caught. But he should have known this, considering he studied psychology and he wanted to work for a police department. You should have known that you don't take your car to the crime scene. You don't use the same device to stalk people by going to their house and sitting outside of their house, going in their house, using the same phone. He should have known better. But when you are thirsty for death, destruction, you don't think. And that is Bryan C. Kohberger. He did not think this crime out properly. As I've always said, 50 ways to kill a person and 100 ways to get caught. That is what has happened in this case. 100 ways to get caught. He used his own devices to get caught. No separate phones, no separate nothing. Phones pinging at the house, phones pinging at 3 a.m., phones pinging back at 9 a.m., phones pinging at 4 something out in the middle of nowhere. His phone. No common sense to go get another damn phone. CCTV footage. You're in the general area. Possibly also seen by a doorbell camera of neighbors. Not very smart, but once again, thirsty to kill. Was this a dry run with the coworker breaking into her apartment? Will there be evidence in court? Will she testify in court? Will she be able to prove that he broke into her house and had surveillance in her house? Will they show evidence on his phone and devices that he was stalking this lady, other people, ladies at the campus? Will we find out he was stalking other women back home on the East Coast? What other evidence will they bring to court? Will there be somebody who could testify to him acting creepy with them back in Pennsylvania, other neighboring states, Idaho, and Washington State? And as most of you know, Xana Kernodle's sister was a student at Washington State. Was he stalking her, bothering her, messaging her? How deep does this rabbit hole go? Thank you for listening. Strategy. What's the strategy? Did he decide on his own to remain silent, or was his attorney recommending this? Once again, I feel like he's playing games with the court. Will he decide to take a plea? Why not take a plea now? You know, you're guilty. You know, you killed those kids. I believe he killed those kids. Why not take a plea? Will he plead later? Will the trial start in October 23, or will it be later? Will she need more time? His attorney. As I said, he knows he's guilty. There's information that perhaps the news has been biased in this case pertaining to Kohberger, that the news has been negative in judging him, that he's already guilty. Do you feel like the news has been sending out negative information pertaining to Kohberger with the he said and the she said and the sources, and that some news agents are biased and that they have already prejudged Mr. Kohberger? Will he get a fair trial? Will he be able to find 12 members of a jury to say, he didn't do this? There's no evidence. What is the evidence? How much evidence? We hear it's a lot. And 9 times out of 10, with all the victims involved, this is why you have so much data, because you have other victims and their phones, devices, computers, iPads, so on and so forth. Will he take a plea to avoid the death penalty? Will the death penalty be offered? I could say possibly it will, because of the heinousness of a crime. You have more than one victim. It's brutal. The crime was brutal. And as you hear Ms. Coffin-Dafford say, justice needs to be served for the individuals murdered. This is about the kids. So she can't see the state offering him any type of plea, accepting a plea rather. I won't doubt that they offer the death penalty due to the fact he murdered 4 children and he butchered those kids. He butchered those children. All right, I got a lot of notes. As most of you know, there's a lot of information for the defense to gather on behalf of their clients and weigh the evidence. So will they be able to start this trial on time in October? And as you know, there's no preliminary hearing because the state brought forward an indictment last week. So this pushes the trial and the information forward to go forward in court. Once again, will she be ready in October, or will she delay it? I believe this is for fame, more attention on behalf of Mr. Kohberger. Instead of just doing the right thing and save the family from the gruesome details of the crime and all these random people coming in to testify and bringing forward all this information that they have, CCTV footage and all this damn data. Do the right thing and just confess. If indeed you are the perpetrator, why subject these people to the horrendousness of what you exacted against their children? But because he's a narcissist and a psychopath, as I said, this is his crowning moment, crowning glory. I've got to see what they have. I've got to see how they caught me. I've got to see the pictures of what I've done. I need to see my handiwork. Is his attorney afraid of him? Because we know that he doesn't like women. So imagine having this blonde-haired woman, I said this months ago, sitting in the courtroom. You see your lawyer for the first time. Damn, it's a woman. I don't like women. They don't like me. I don't like them. What is the rapport between this lady and Mr. Kohberger? Is he receptive? Does he talk over her? Does he make her feel like she's incompetent? She doesn't know what she's talking about. We've heard this in commentary from students, how he demeaned his students, and this is how he lost his teacher's assistant. So he was acting out. So it was only a matter of time he was going to kill or do something rash because he was losing control. And this is what happens to people who don't have control. They act out to gain control. As I said, why remain silent? I'm sure some of the information that's going to be relayed in court is going to be embarrassing to Mr. Kohberger, but it is what it is. I still believe he wants his defining moment. This is his crowning glory, to sit in the court and hear the said information. It is said that the judge, while reading the names of the victims, he misspoke of their names, and it is said that the family members, and I got this from the Florida News Network, the WFLA channel, that the family felt disrespected because he didn't pronounce their names right, and he did it more than one time. The judge appeared emotional in reading the names of the victims, and he also spoke to the news about their role, and them should know how the law works pertaining to, I guess, reporting the news and being in the courtroom. But the commentary was relayed on that network. They do believe the judge will be fair in his rendering in this case against Mr. Kohberger. Will the judge be fair? And is the judge already biased since he was kind of stuttering over the names of the victims and pausing in between reading their names? And as I said before, someone said they heard one of the family members or more say they felt disrespected, or that it was disrespectful not to pronounce Kaylee's name properly. Kayla, I believe, was said. Maybe he was nervous. As they said, it's a small courtroom. Not many people could fit in the courtroom. Maybe the judge was nervous. Who's to say that he wasn't? And if he was emotional, then that means he's a human and he has feelings. And as they said, a lot of judges do not show emotion. They just read the verdict and keep it moving. Then sometimes the judge gives his rendering of what he thinks of the suspect after the verdict. Will we have that type of judge in this case? That is my said information. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Big Angie, 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome to the live stream. Please go to my community board. Check out my polls, movie suggestions, breaking news. Let's go with commentary number 2. We're going to run over here to Court TV and see what they have to say pertaining to Kohberger and his behavior. And as I said, this female co-worker, do we believe her? Did somebody break into her apartment? Was it Kohberger? Did he plant surveillance in there? Will the court show that they have evidence that he put some type of device in her house to watch her? When did she suspect Kohberger as the person that moved things around in her house? What was moved, rearranged? Is it only because he was arrested that she came to this assertion? Had he not been arrested, would she have suspected Kohberger, and what made her approach him, considering we've heard nothing but negative things about him being standoffish. He doesn't talk. And if he does talk, he's very overt in his commentary. So what made this female say something to him? Why Kohberger? What situation were they in for her to be near him to say, hey, I noticed this in my apartment, blah, blah, blah. Number two, does she live in the same apartment complex? Have they had any dealings with each other? Calling each other on the phone, texting, hello, how you doing? Good morning. Because we have not heard of him dating anybody, talking to anybody. Basically, everything about him has been negative from high school up until the people who went to the university, studied under him, lived on the property, nothing positive. Did he date anybody? Have any sexual relations with anybody? Who is Bryan Kohberger? Let's get on with the next commentary. One moment, please. Thank you for your time.
And you just find out that nobody understands exactly why, but he was stalking them, he was hunting them.
The maximum penalty for that offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is up to death and/or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
This was probably a person that blends into the background.
We're from Pennsylvania. We actually don't have crosswalks.
His neighbors and people who know him superficially would probably never guess that he had any violent tendencies.
It's disgusting to think about someone that used to hang out with all the time could do something like this.
Are you waiving your right to a speedy preliminary hearing?
Yes.
If you got to know him well, you would see layers of things that were a bit off or different.
What I do know is that Bryan did have anger issues.
You could tell there was some off about him. Very quiet, calculated about what he says. Actually very similar to how he walked into court, no different.
I'm just curious about the law. I don't mean to.
Oh, no, yeah, I can find it for you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Everything that I've read about Bryan Kohberger would fit the type of person that we would expect for doing a crime like this.
The details about Bryan Kohberger's life before he was charged in the quadruple homicide, they are limited. But there are some things that we know about the suspects. Kohberger, who was originally from Pennsylvania, received a bachelor's degree from DeSale University in 2020. And he completed a graduate program at DeSale as well. In November of 2022, when the University of Idaho murders occurred, Kohberger was enrolled as a criminology graduate student, PhD program at nearby Washington State University Pullman campus. That's where he was pulled over for a traffic violation on campus back in November. There's body cam footage of that traffic stop that has been released, and Kohberger is seen speaking to this law enforcement officer about why he was stopped, and he doesn't really let it go.
There's not really a great option there.
Yeah, at least just slightly into the crosswalk. So, yeah, where I'm from Pennsylvania, we actually don't have like crosswalks.
Oh,
so even if you're kind of slightly, there's a little bit more leeway as well. Like there are a few lines. Like there's one white line and there's another one. There's like a certain margin from which you can actually kind of place your vehicle.
Yeah, so I know laws vary state to state, but there is a law in Washington for blocking an intersection like that, proceeding through when you don't, when you're just stalling. I forget the actual verbiage, I can find it for you, but it's like stalling, blocking an intersection.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the law. I don't mean to.
Oh, no, yeah, I can find it for you. Yeah.
And what happens after that, the officer goes back to her vehicle. She looks up the law, looks up the website that the law is on, and she goes back and has to read him the statute and tell him, this is where you look up laws if you are interested. And he goes on for another 2 or 3 minutes back and forth with the officer. Joining us now to talk about all of this, Salt Lake City, Utah private investigator Jason Jensen, and in Nashville, Tennessee, legal commentator, former Los Angeles Deputy District Attorney, podcaster, and YouTube host of The Emily Show. Emily D. Baker is with us. Thank you both for weighing in on this. Emily, let me start with you. Is he a wannabe officer, a wannabe lawyer, in the way that you hear him going back and forth with this officer?
What's interesting is that he says where he's from in Pennsylvania, they don't even have crosswalks, and then proceeds to talk about how there's more leeway and the layout of the crosswalks. So I don't know if he wants to be an attorney, but he's caught himself in his own misstatement, saying there's no crosswalks, and then actually they're set up differently. But I think he wanted to continue to talk, and we saw that in every single one of his traffic stops, that he has quite a lot to say. Not as much to say in court today, though, however.
Jason, what's your take on him arguing this out with the officer and really not letting it go? It goes for a total of 15 minutes, this entire stop.
Your observation is spot on. He really has an argumentative spirit about these things rather than just being polite and courteous and just get through the traffic stop. Traffic violations are strict liability. You don't have to be first on it. You just have to, you're expected to know it before you enter that state and operate a motor vehicle. So if he's wrong, he's wrong. He just tries to be polite and get his way through it, but he wants to argue instead.
I want to quickly play something that has to do with his return to Pennsylvania. So this is when he was in Washington there that we just saw on video, but he went back home for the holiday season. That was in December of 2022. And according to a recent NBC Dateline episode, The Killings on King Road, Kohberger's own sister became suspicious of his involvement in the Idaho murders during his time at home.
According to our source, investigators learned the following. One of Bryan's two older sisters, home for the holidays, brought up an uncomfortable topic. The sister had noticed Bryan had been wearing latex gloves. She thought it odd. And at some point, the sister, quite loudly, pointed out that at the time of the murders in Moscow, Bryan had lived just a few miles away in Pullman, and that Bryan drove a white Elantra, a car that law enforcement across the nation was looking for. Add that to the gloves, and the sister said she thought the Kohberger family should consider that Bryan might have killed the 4 students in Moscow.
Now, the piece goes on, Emily, to say that his father felt strongly it was not the case. And then we know by December 30th is when SWAT was kicking in their door, FBI coming in and taking him under arrest and seizing things inside of their family home. But this is big information for a family that's watching him as he's moving inside of their home, is it not?
This is a lot of information. I wonder if Bryan Kohberger was worried that the law enforcement was going to go through the trash and try to find fingerprints and DNA, which is exactly what they did. And they only found familial DNA to his father. And it would be very odd indeed to have someone walking around the family home constantly wearing gloves, given all the other circumstances. I'm not surprised it raised alarm bells. I'm more surprised that the sister talked to the media about it.
Well, it sounds like they have a source who gave them that information. But Jason Jensen, I want to ask you a similar question to that reaction to that information. We know when we saw the search warrant in this case that the police did recover 4 medical-style latex gloves, and it seemed a bit strange that that would have anything to do with the accusations in this case because he wasn't in the area anymore. Why would he still need gloves when he's at home? But it seems like that answers a bit of the question.
Yeah, exactly. With him being a criminology, major, going for his doctorate, he's going to know about police techniques like trash pulls and things of that nature. So clearly wearing his gloves at home, he's preparing for that just in such an event. So it's not a surprise, but it should have sent alarm bells for the entire family. But for the parents being in denial, they should have been the first ones to call in something like that.
All right, everybody, Court TV is the source, and I agree. They should have been the first ones to call it in. Let's chop up what they had to say in this said commentary. Anger issues. We hear a female schoolmate say he had anger issues. What type of topics would make him angry? Any type of topic? calculated in what he had to say, one male says in this commentary, such as how he gave his plea in the court yesterday, which basically he didn't give a plea. The judge gave him the not guilty plea on behalf of the suspect. We also hear this lady saying that he fits the profile, his behavior fits the profile of someone who would have committed these said crimes. With all the degrees he has, Mr. Kohberger is dumb. He has no common sense. And that has been said about many people who are smart, that they have book knowledge, but they do not have common sense. And that's the queen throwing that in there. Because no matter what he studied, how long he studied, being a PhD candidate, he obviously was not smart. You can't study criminology and also try in psychology and also try to work for a police station, gathering information and data, and go to the crime scene in your own damn car. Breaking and entering and not thinking that someone can see you on a doorbell camera or surveillance. Stalking the victims from your own damn phone and messaging them from your own damn phone. Never using a burner phone to stalk victims and gather information, pictures, so on and so forth. He could have easily bought a cheap phone from Walmart and stalked the victims via a burner phone. Stay woke. You hear the father saying of Miss Gonzalez, Kaylee Gonzalez's father, that he believes that he was stalking the victims. It seems to me that he was stalking these young ladies as soon as he touched down, because he's only there a short while. He's only there a few months. And I believe that's why his behavior was erratic at the school, and the students noticed that he was unraveling. It's because he was stalking these kids and he was losing control. And they said he didn't seem to simmer down until after the children were murdered, from their recollection of his behavior. Argumentative in the commentary in this stop by the law. Female officer talking to him. She's offering to go get the information for him. He's curious about this. He's comparing what happens in Pennsylvania. We don't have crosswalks, but then he contradicts himself to say, well, there ain't made like this. That's his demeanor. He has to be right. Kohberger has to be right. Imagine a girl who went on the date with him. We learned of her months ago. Imagine what she's thinking, how lucky I am. Maybe he wasn't at the stage at that time to be murdering people or even thought of murdering. So let's ask that question. When he went on that date with that girl, had he had thoughts of murdering women? When did he decide he wanted to become a killer? And how did he think he was going to get away when you foolishly left breadcrumbs to lead to your front door? You hear him wearing the gloves at the house, suspicious from the sister. She's gone and spoke to a news agent, obviously. She's spoken with the family. She's brought the subject up with the family about the car, his behavior. The father saying, no, it's not him. But it was, from what the evidence says. And that's not including what else the state has against Mr. Kohberger. Was he upset by the officer stopping him? Because, if he's easily offended, he may have been offended. And then it was a female officer at that. Stay woke. Most serial killers wanted to be an authority, such as in the military, police officers. And what they settle for are security jobs because they can't make it as a police officer. They usually can't pass the mental exam and or the physical exam. And we've learned this with many killers. And when you go back in history and proper investigations of their demeanor, most of them wanted to be in law enforcement. So it did not shock me that he wanted to work at the police department. And from my understanding, he did not get that internship or job to go work there. Did the parents argue with their daughters about suspecting him? Because I think most people would have put two and two together or just said, not necessarily he did it, but wow, what a coincidence. He's 15 minutes away. They had to Google the location and the destination. Oh my goodness, Idaho. Oh, Moscow. Oh my goodness, it's just 15 minutes away from where Bryan goes to school. Oh my goodness, there's a white Elantra, it's a Bolo. Oh my goodness, my brother drives a white Elantra. Oh my goodness, my brother is weird, acts weird, wacko, crazy ass acting. Damn, did my brother do this? Once again, did the sister ever confront the brother? Did the parents ever confront him before he was arrested? Only finding male DNA from the father, senior, at the house. You mean to tell me you all didn't find it suspicious your grown-ass son walking around the house with gloves on? Why did he take those gloves there? Why did he need them? Mr. Kohberger, you had to have known that you cannot hide your DNA. It is a part of you. It's in your hair. It's in your eyelashes. It's your skin, your fingerprints, toe prints. Come on, sir. You're college educated and you don't have enough sense to know wearing gloves inside of a house is not going to erase your DNA. This goes back to the foolishness of a killer, the delusions they have in their mind. They're only seeing what they want to see, hearing what they want to hear. How does the family feel now knowing the sister has talked to a news agent that she suspected her brother? Are they all getting along? Are they still in disagreement over his innocence or guilt? Once again, Kohberger is not a smart person. Obviously, he got a ticket in that, I believe he got a ticket for that traffic stop. I believe that was mentioned. If not, I stand corrected. But let's keep it real. Kohberger was stalking the victims on that very day he got the ticket in Moscow, Idaho. So he was early on stalking the victims because from my understanding, that ticket was rendered in either July or August. And the children didn't get killed till later on, months later. So he was out stalking them months before murdering them. So that's why I said his focus was not on his school books. His focus was on killing. Whether it be he was upset because somebody didn't respond, it doesn't matter. You're in an entirely different jurisdiction, 15 minutes away, 10 minutes away. It's all the same. You don't live over there. You don't have friends over there. As far as we know, they have phone pings putting you there 3 in the morning, 9 in the morning. You can't explain that logically. If you don't know anybody over there, you know nobody at the house. Why would you be sitting at someone's house at 9 in the morning on a Sunday? For what reason? And as I put on my community page about evidence that can exonerate Mr. Kohberger, his defense team believes somebody in that house can exonerate him. So that is either Dylan or Bethany. On my community page, you all said it was Bethany. So what does Bethany know? Because you're going to have to say that you knew him, he visited you, blah, blah, blah. But that still won't explain a knife sheath with a missing knife up in a bed with 2 dead girls. And if he was your friend, what the hell is he doing up there? What is a knife sheath doing up there with his DNA on it? Stay woke. We're not stupid. Information is coming out that possibly he's being judged harshly by the media. People have already prejudged him. The media is biased negatively. No, we're only going by the evidence that the state has brought forward from the affidavit. And if the state brings us evidence that you've been at these people's house, walking around, snooping around, hanging around, that's on you. That's nothing to do with me. That's nothing to do with the media. Lots and lots of data. Let's go over the data, then I will check out of here. Thank you so much for your time. You see, people get mad at the information once it is released, but that's the state's job. They decide what they want to release in an affidavit. Common sense should tell you there's way more than what they revealed about Kohberger. And the fact that he walked into court yesterday not saying anything, bingo card. You did that. And you just want to hang on for dear life and drag this out, making it worse for the family and the community when you could end all this and just admit that you killed those kids and ask the court to favor you and just give you life and not death. And I do believe the state will offer death because of the heinousness of the crimes. He butchered 4 kids, and it was premeditated, I do believe. Was he mimicking BTK? That was also mentioned in the commentary. I don't know. Who's to say? We're dealing with a nut, so it doesn't really matter. You're entitled to your interpretation of this information. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this network and supporting this network. KREM is the source pertaining to why Kohberger remains silent. And naturally, it is his constitutional right not to say anything in the court, just like it is when you first get arrested. Let's hear what this report has to say about him. Hello, Crazy P, Kiki. Hello, everybody. Esley, thank you. Trio Girl, Lynn, thank you all. It's taking its time uploading. I don't know what's going on here. Well, I'll just read because it's standing silent does not mean that a suspect is admitting guilt to the crimes they are accused of committing. Onlookers, family members of the victims, and people around the world waited with bated breath for the Moscow murder suspect to plead guilty or not guilty to the charges against him, but he didn't do either. Instead, he chose to stand silent. Remaining silent does not mean that a suspect is admitting guilt to the crimes they're accused of committing. Rather, it simply means the judge will enter a not guilty plea to the charges the suspect is facing. Here's what remaining silent means for the suspect and the case. Bryan Kohberger, 28, accused of murdering Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan in their off-campus home on November 13, 2022. He was arrested at his family's home in Pennsylvania, December 30th, 2022, and extradited back to Latau County shortly after. Kohberger in his first appearance in Latau County, January 5th, 2023. 1 week later, he appeared again and waived his right to a speedy preliminary hearing. That hearing was then scheduled to begin on June 26, 2023, and last an entire week. And now waiving your right means you want to get it right. You want your attorney to get it right, and that is when the attorney is gathering the information to try to get you off from the crime. You don't want to rush because you may move too hastily into going to court and your attorney is not properly prepared. He appeared in court for his arraignment on Monday with his public defender, Ann Taylor. During this arraignment, Judge John Judge, isn't that funny? John Judge. The judge is named Judge. His last name is Judge. Can't make this up. Explained the charges to Kohberger. Excuse me. The screen jumped off. He explained the charges to Kohberger and asked him to enter a plea. At that point, Taylor said Kohberger would stand silent. What does it mean to stand silent? At an arraignment, a suspect is asked to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty, which are the only pleas recognized in the state of Idaho. However, a suspect can also choose to stand silent or stand mute. According to Cornell Law School, remaining silent means the suspect does not take a stance on being guilty or not guilty. They simply refrain from speaking. If a suspect refuses to enter a plea or decides to stand silent, the court must enter a not guilty plea on the suspect's behalf. Very interesting. The right for a suspect to remain silent is protected by the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution, which protects defendants from self-incrimination. Why would Kohberger stand silent? It can't be said for sure why Kohberger made the decision to stand silent at his arraignment. However, there are several reasons why he or any other defendant would choose to do so. The Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution protects a defendant regardless of whether they are guilty or innocent. In fact, a defendant's refusal to testify or decision to stand silent can't be used against him during their trial. Please note that. It is important to note that Kohberger's decision to stand silent does not mean he is admitting to guilt to the crimes. It simply means that the court is now responsible for entering a not guilty plea on his behalf, which just makes no sense to me, but it is what it is. What is next? Now that a not guilty plea has been entered for all 5 charges against Kohberger, he will now stand trial for the murders. His trial is scheduled to begin October 2nd, 2023 at 8:30 a.m. A trial date being set also means the prosecution has 60 days to officially declare whether they intend to seek the death penalty in this case. KREM2 News is the source. So 60 days from yesterday, The state will have to decide if they want to seek the death penalty against Bryan C. Kohberger in the murders of 4 Idaho University students. Will they seek the death penalty? I do believe this is a game to him. I do believe he is ignorant. He may have book sense, but he is ignorant as all get out. He foolishly stalked these kids from devices that could be traced back to him, computers, phones. He went to the property being seen in a car on foot, whichsoever. He did not think this crime through. And we are in a day and age of camera surveillance. So he foolishly went there and then went back that morning of. And I do believe that will be entered into evidence. But as they said in this trial, if indeed he goes to trial, it won't be used against him that he stood silent at the hearing yesterday. It does not mean that he is guilty because he stood silent. But I personally believe that he is, because a sane person who knows fully well and has all of his or her faculties that they did not commit the crime of murder ×4 and burglary would plead not guilty. That's my opinion. Why would I go into a court and stand there and say nothing knowing I didn't kill these people? I'm trying to fight for my life, my freedom, and not be put to death. So I would have no problem saying not guilty. I am innocent. And that's what an innocent person will say before they say anything such as, they don't have anything against me. They don't have no evidence. There's nothing leading to me being there. Innocent people don't talk like that. And I noticed that in a special I was watching on A&E yesterday. The guy said, they don't have no evidence leading to me. They don't have nothing on me. That's not something you would say if you're innocent. You would say, I did not kill my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend. That's what you would say. Not, they don't have anything. They don't have anything leading to me, blah, blah, blah. I brought you said information in this live stream pertaining to a strategy, a possible strategy by the defense. Is he on board with the strategy used to try to get him off or take a plea? Will he take a plea? Will he enter a plea? Will he try to avoid the death penalty? Is he the one that wanted to remain silent, or was it Miss Taylor? Was it her suggestion? You heard information pertaining to his sister believing his possible guilt. She's the one that brought the subject up. Who did she bring the subject up to? Law enforcement, news agent, or the family at first? You also heard that the father said, no, he ain't involved. Why do you know, sir? Because he's now in a jail facing charges for quadruple homicide. Do the family still support him, mom and dad and other relatives? Do the sisters support him? Who's talking to him, sending him money, putting money on his books, video chatting? Who is he talking to? Does he get letters from random people? Do he read the letters? Does he respond? The woman who claimed he broke into her apartment, will she testify in court? And is she one of the grand jury witnesses that testified? And will it be able to be used in court? Because if there's no police report and no IDing Mr. Kohberger, no arrest of Kohberger, will it be allowed in a court of law as testimony? I think he did it. And what is the proof that he watched her, put surveillance in her apartment after helping her? And did she only think he did it because he was arrested for these murders? Did she ever tell anybody, I think this guy that helped me may be the perp that broke into my apartment, before knowing of the Idaho 4 slayings? Did she suspect him of breaking into her apartment before finding out about the 4 deaths? Because she did go to this person, talk to him, ask for his help. He allegedly helped her set up surveillance, I guess. Is there any point after that did she notice anything creepy about his behavior, commentary, before knowing of the deaths? Because that is what the defense is going to ask her if indeed she is a witness in the trial. Will there be a trial? Will he enter in a plea of guilty to avoid the death penalty? As you hear in his commentary, the state at 60 days to give a rendering if they're seeking the death penalty. I do believe the death penalty should be sought as for justice for the brutal nature of the crimes. He deserves death. That's my personal opinion. He should get what he gave those kids. Life isn't good enough. Many people say, let him rot in jail. Well, he's a young person, so it's a while before he'll actually rot in there. Die, yes, but you understand what I'm saying. He still can talk, breathe, converse. The children don't have that luxury. It was also said in the commentary I brought to you that the judge was stuttering, pausing, misspelling the names, mispronouncing the names of the victims. Was he nervous? Or he just mispronounced the names? It has been said that on a news commentary channel that the family felt disrespected. It was disrespectful of him not knowing the kids' names. You're entitled to your opinion on that. I'm not going to give an opinion. Just repeating to you the information. The strategy, the defense. What is the strategy to get Mr. Kohberger off of this heinous crime? How many people in the family believe he committed the murders? Are they all in cahoots in believing he committed this crime? The sisters, the father, the mother. Are they at odds over their assertions of his innocence or guilt? Who did the sister talk to? One of the older sisters. Are both sisters in agreement of his innocence or guilt? Are they at odds? Because that's a very good question. Will he surrender later and just tell the truth and keep these people from having to sit in court and listen to gruesome details about their family members? Because I'm sure it would be very horrific, the pictures of the dead kids. But he's a narcissist. He's a psychopath. He's going to enjoy this. And this is why I believe he entered the remaining silent plea, letting the judge render it for him, which I thought was very petty and childish and immature. But we're dealing with a psychopath, so that's to be expected. And as I also brought you commentary, it is rare to have this remaining silent. Most defendants put in guilty or not guilty. So why this remaining silent? Because he's a game player. This is his crowning moment to be in court, to get attention he never got as a young person. He wants to see the evidence. He wants to see where he messed up. He wants to see his flaws. He also wants to see his handiwork. He's diabolical. And as you heard, two people speaking of his demeanor that knew of him, argumentative, obviously likes to be right in his commentary, easily angered. It was only a matter of time he was going to pop off. And sadly, 4 people got the brunt of his demented spirit. Prayers to the families, prayers to the school, prayers to both communities, Washington and Idaho. And as most of you know, last week, the children got posthumous degrees after death, which I thought Kaylee should have gotten hers in December, but that's neither here nor there. Thank you, Idaho University, for finally giving the kids their degrees after death. What would they do with the property where the house stood? The university owns the house now and the property. We will see what they decide to do with that property. I do believe the property should stand so the jury members can go to the property, see the layout of the house, get an idea of how the perpetrator entered in, entered out. Naturally, they will possibly give a 3D rendering in the courtroom, but there's still nothing like going to the crime scene to see what it looks like, surveying the property. As I said, weighing all perimeters to see how a suspect was watching, lurking, entering, and leaving. Evidentiary material pertaining to the survivors. Did they know him? His attorneys are saying somebody has evidence to prove what? He's innocent. And what might that be? One says she saw him. So what would the other one be saying? Unless the one that saw him is changing her testimony in her original report. Or is this defense bluffing? I want to thank you for your time. Once again, Mr. Kohberger went to court yesterday. He stood silent. We will wait to see if he will enter a plea in court in October, if he will say guilty again or not guilty, or how it will go. If the state will offer the death penalty, they have 60 days to give that rendering. Will they offer the death penalty? Will he get it? And will he then, if he does get it, let's say they offer it, he decides then, okay, I'm going to enter in a plea of guilty. Maybe that is what Mr. Kohberger is waiting on, to see if the state will offer the death penalty. But I think he knows what happened at that house. He knows the role he played. You can skip all of that and enter a guilty plea and just let the judge give you a sentence without a lawyer representing you. Because the fact that he stood there yesterday not saying anything, in my opinion, tells me he did do it. Because you can't months ago say, I'm innocent. Your family saying, oh, we're waiting for the this and this, and we're going to presume he's innocent until we see and hear everything. And then now months later, you go to court, you don't say nothing, ask not to incriminate yourself. Well, how are you incriminating yourself when you haven't done any damn thing? That doesn't make any sense. I can only see you doing this if perhaps you did know the victims. You had been in the house. You dated one of the girls. And you don't say anything in court because you've been there visiting and can be put there by someone. So let's ask that question. Has Kohberger been in that house before the morning of the deaths, of the murders? And is there somebody in the house that survived? Did they know him, dated him, talked to him, was friends with him, and that's why his DNA is on a sheath in a room with two dead girls in the bed? And still, if he hadn't been in there, friends with one of the ones that survived, you can't explain logically a missing knife and a sheath lying beside a dead girl with your touch DNA on it, whether you knew the victims or the survivors or not. Highly circumstantial and highly suspect. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie, 129 Cash App, stickers and chats are welcome during the live stream. Thank you for your time. You all have a wonderful week. Please check my community board for the said movie suggestions: The Ritual Killer, Morgan Freeman, and The Fallen Son, now playing on Netflix with Mr. Idris Elba. I believe all this is for show. Mr. Kohberger standing silent. He does not care about the victims. He never did, because he doesn't care for himself. And we will wait to see if he enters in a plea of guilty in October, or he plays this out for his own selfish and sick benefit. Thank you for joining me. You have been listening to The Vault XL.